Welcome into Pac-12 Preview. Yes, I am Michael Caratanudo at Diablos00 on Twitter is where you can find me. And it is Friday, so happy weekend to you. Hope everybody had a solid week. It's been a fun week in baseball, softball, tennis, in the Pac-12. Also, obviously, spring ball wrapped up. Speaking of which, spring ball, got to give a shout out to Arizona State head coach Kenny Dillingham, as today is his birthday. Coach Dillingham turned 33 today and is the youngest Power 5 coach in the country. But you got to love it. Again, if you've been out there, you see it. Yes, it's going to take work. A new staff doesn't come in if everything else is going the way it should be. So that is that. But other things going on, obviously, the NFL draft is upon us. Yes, we had the primetime first round. See, and when they first started doing that, I mean, it's been what? 7 years at least? 6-7 years? Like, I wasn't really into binging stuff then, so from a selfish standpoint, like, round one ends, and yes, granted it starts in prime time, it's later on, so you're not going to go, but I don't know, man. I the selfish part of me loved when it started Saturday morning and ended on Sunday. You'd have rounds 1 through 3. And then 4 through 7. And yes, from a broadcast standpoint, whoever's doing it's a marathon. I get it. So yes, if I was sitting there, which one day I would love to be sitting there, especially talking to players from the Pac-12 that got drafted. If I was sitting there, I mean, yes, that is a long day. They would switch up crews, but then, they would go Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Sorry. You go Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and yeah, I mean, it's a marathon if you're doing it that way. This way you go Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but you have round one, so obviously it's, the red carpet of it all. That's how I look at it. Yes, there is a red carpet there, but the red carpet of it all, the first round picks, and then it ends, and then, yes, you have to wait 24 hours less than 24 hours, I should say. So about 21 hours for rounds 2 and 3. But yeah, I'm the type that I just, I'd rather have rounds 1 and 2, at least rounds 1 and 2. But yeah, you saw the wheeling and dealing going on. And believe me, people were like, well, what about the teams? Yeah, they're prepared for all 7 rounds. They're prepared for, if you're a solid franchise and you're being run well, you're prepared for 7 rounds that go down, 17,000 different ways. So, but I get it. They made it an event. Obviously, it's a TV event. It's more money for the NFL because they don't need it. Because they're struggling to get by. They're breaking even. Their product might work out one day. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, then once I started binge watching shows and stuff, I'm like, okay, I just don't want it to end after round 1. So what are you gonna do? That's that. But I look at it. I mean, it was a heck of a draft, or a heck of a first round. 9 player Big Ten and SEC led with 9 players being taken from each conference. The Texans pulled off the first, insanity of the draft, and not because they went number 2 and took CJ Stroud, but because while they had that, they knew they were going to go with CJ Stroud once Carolina went with what many mock drafts and many, draft experts thought to be the number 1 pick in Alabama's Bryce Young. for their quarterback. So they sprint to the, turn in the pick for CJ Stroud. They literally took, I think it was about a minute of the 10. The rest of the 9 minutes, they were on the phone because they said the pick was turned in. And I know on the NFL Network, if you watch it on the NFL Network, they said the pick was turned in, and they said all the Cardinals are on the clock. So they're talking, and they go into the Cardinals, they call it the war room. They go and you see the Cardinals in the war room. Then you see it was towards the end, but in the beginning, you see Houston on the phone, and CJ Stroud was already up on stage. So they're not talking to CJ Stroud. So they go crazy and say, hey, we need to really rebuild. We want to rebuild. And for DeMeco Ryans, who I thought, a lot of people thought, but I thought in this case, did a phenomenal job in San Francisco. DeMeco Ryans is defensive guy, obviously, and they get the quarterback who they feel is their franchise quarterback. Then they make the trade with the Cardinals. And I was like, wait, the Cardinals and the Texans had 12. So they had the second pick, and then because of the Deshaun Watson trade, they had the 12th pick. So when I first initially think of it, seeing, they're trading with the Cardinals, I was like, huh? I was like, you got to be kidding me. Why are the Cardinals moving out of 3 to go all the way down to 12? And but then the Cardinals end back up at 6. But so the Cardinals got back the 12th pick of the first round, as well as a number 33 pick in the second round, and a first and third round pick next year. So you look at, number 33 in the second round, very high as well, which is, that's actually, the Cardinals have the first pick of the second round today. And a first and a third next year. So the Cardinals and the Texans are both, come on, it's a rebuild. Let's just say it. But that being said, it was a phenomenal trade. And the Cardinals end up back at 6, and they get Paris Johnson. But nonetheless, the Texans did that. And I'm talking draft because, yes, as always, of course, there were 3 players from the Pac-12 that were drafted. The first being the corner out of Oregon, which fell to Bill Belichick and the Patriots, which, look, everybody's got their evaluations, and I understand, I get it, because Seattle, that's definitely a Pete Carroll pick. John Schneider, the GM, but Devin Witherspoon, the kid out of Illinois. You got to love a corner. It's 180, 185 pounds that just comes up and absolutely crushes you. Now, yes, I did not watch a ton of Illinois football this year, but I did watch a few games, and man, this kid definitely, he jumped out. Did Devin Witherspoon. So between him and Christian Gonzalez, I thought, well, yeah, those are the 2 best corners in the draft. And the way Witherspoon, Witherspoon, this kid comes up and hits. They showed it on the highlight package, 2 plays, but it's more than, 2, 3, 4 plays all year. This kid, as a corner, can cover. To overstate the obvious, can cover, but just a physical kid. And when you look at, Devin Witherspoon is listed at 6 foot. 181 pounds. And he did very good things for Illinois. And I think where the Patriots celebrated, I'll say this because, like I said, the Patriots got Christian Gonzalez at 17. But the Commanders, right before them, took the corner that was ranked, third. And Christian Gonzalez second. Like I said, Witherspoon first. But Forbes, I mean, is 6'1", 166 pounds. So a little light. But it's a kid that has long arms. I mean, I saw Mississippi State play again a few times this year because, we have to put they have to sprinkle the SEC all over TV, even when they play, teams that have not nearly the depth that they have. But, hey, it's always a great game to show. Oh, they're so great. Anyway, okay, we're going to get off that train. But the Commanders went with Forbes. I mean, it's 6'1", 166 pounds. I mean, yes, long arms. And then one thing they said in a pre-draft analysis is that, he's better in off coverage. And that's the thing, when you're a little bit smaller, you get some of these receivers that are bigger, they're going to, shuck and chuck you at the line if they can. And not that Forbes doesn't have the recovery speed, but you constantly don't want to be in that position. To overstate the obvious for a corner, I know, yes, I should be a defensive backs coach, right? No. But that being said, when you look at, what Emmanuel Forbes did this season, and like off the ball, again, off route concepts, and they did say, I like that in the pre-draft analysis when I was putting this in my note, instinctive. And people say, oh, well, they say that about a lot of players. I go, yeah, but as a defensive back, a quarterback, you hear that, can you process right away? Process, and make the right play, knowing what pre-snap, if you see what they're going to do, and then post-snap as they're shifting, where they're going, how that benefits your play. Okay. But for corners, when you say instinctive, it's one of those things where, especially in off coverage, and a guy's coming at you, I mean, the receiver, in my opinion, has that advantage because when you're not, if you're up on them, yes, people say, oh, well, they can make a double move, but you're right there. It's almost like a basketball player being down in the post and, he's in the, in the high post and then he's starting to go down low. You see where he's at. But if he has that space, and as a defender, you adjust because you're like, oh, this is where I'm going to cut him. I'm going to cut him off. I'm going to make him either put up a bad shot or get rid of the ball. For a corner, being instinctive, you see it. If you're off the ball, you're like, oh, okay, I know he's trying to sell this, but this is what this receiver has done. They've done this in this, formation, this pattern. And again, not that it's going to lead to, 25 interceptions, but you can jump routes, you can knock down the ball, you can, and if they come up with a tough catch, you tip your cap, you go to the next play. But he has the length, and that's the thing. The length people, love about Emmanuel Forbes. And he had 14 interceptions over 3 seasons. But they said his lack of bulk and strength show up in run support. And that's where Witherspoon, again, you see Witherspoon, I mean, he's 15 pounds heavier, but still Witherspoon has no problem coming up to help support the run if that's what the defense calls for. So, but Christian Gonzalez, first Pac-12 player off the board from the University of Oregon. And yes, he was the number 2 ranked corner. He's a big-time press corner. Again, saw mostly all of his games this season. Oregon, they had that ability to where Dan Lannon, again, could press with Christian Gonzalez. And again, he's 6'1", but he's almost 200 pounds. Again, you look at that and, the strength to get his hands on, or the length they talked about pre-draft, and even seeing him play during the season to get his hands on receivers to, within that 5-yard area, reroute them right away, get them off their route, throw the timing off. And that's why I'm surprised the Commanders, if they were going to do that, didn't go there. And yeah, it's not that Forbes can't put on weight, but you have Christian Gonzalez that's almost at 200 pounds. Very quick feet. I mean, he can mirroring receive if he's off or if he's playing press coverage. And again, if you're going to play press coverage a lot, you need to be very quick, but very reactionary. And he's got the feet to do it, to mirror the release and the speed to stay, as they say, in phase, but with receivers. And if he gets caught, away from a receiver, he has the burst to recover quickly. So it's almost like, I mean, it is that catch-22. He can dare quarterbacks to throw to a receiver. He could, quote unquote, be out of phase, be off a receiver, and that receiver looks open, and quarterbacks, again, with their arms, as they should be confident, will throw over. So again, like I said, not that it's going to lead to 25 interceptions for him. But he can recover quickly. And the one thing you saw a lot too is you looked for a corner is changing directions. And man, I'll tell you, there's a few times this season watching them and you see the replay and it's like, oh, and when you make it look seamless, and again, not every time. Yes, receivers are going to beat you. They got a job to do too. They watch just as much film as you do, but he's just very smooth in changing directions. And like I said, he can recover and he closes so well, like so very good when he breaks on passes. And the crazy thing is he had 0 interceptions in 2020 or 2021. But this year, he picked this last season at Oregon, he picked off 4 passes. And he can match up. He can match up over a slot receiver because a lot of times in the slot, as you know, trying to get those mismatches, whether it's a linebacker who, again, isn't crazy slow, but, isn't going to be running with the slot receiver, or even if it's the tight end. So, again, huge pickup there for Bill Belichick. I just not surprised, of course, because he always seems to land those players. And Christian Gonzalez, again, at Oregon this year, I mean, you look at the top, I figure definitely to me, the talent, him and Weatherspoon both to go in, talent-wise in the top 5, but draft-wise, I would think both in the top 10. But you look at the top 10, so the first 2 was quarterbacks. Like I said, Bryce Young, Alabama, I'm sure you watched, C.J. Stroud, but then you had Will Anderson Jr., Bryce Young's teammate, who won 3rd after the trade to the Texans. So you go outside linebacker, and then the Colts took the freak, Anthony Richardson, and we saw what he did in Indianapolis at the Combine. And even at Florida, but he did only 13 starts, and it'll be a project, a project at quarterback. And yes, he could, I would say by the second half of the season, he could be starting, but he is not a day 1 starter. NFL level wise. So if he would have went back to Florida and he comes out next year, chances are, this kid could have been the number 1 pick next year, but he ends up in a place in Indy where, the defense did struggle last year, but overall, they do have a very solid defense, the offensive line. So so they went with another quarterback. So, and then Devin Witherspoon to Seattle, like I said, number 5. And that's a trade from Denver. So they never would have thought trading Russell Wilson away to Denver would land them the number 5 pick, but it did. So you have 3 quarterbacks, an outside linebacker, and a corner in the top 5. And then the Cardinals with the trade, they went with Paris Johnson, tackle out of Ohio State. And this kid, again, seeing him on TV and seeing what he did and just watching quite a bit of Ohio State games, unfortunately. Yes, that was for you, Jeff Lowry. But Paris Johnson, absolutely solid. So then you go offensive tackle, another defensive end in Tyree Wilson out of Texas Tech. Then Bijan Robinson, who to me, best player in the draft, and the Atlanta Falcons said, you know what? Why can't we take a running back? Because a lot of people talked about how loaded the Eagles were, and they got a little more loaded up front. We'll see how he pans out. Obviously, had the personal issue with Jalen Carter because the Eagles went right after them at number 9. But the Falcons take Bijan Robinson, Arizona product, kid that went to South Point Catholic and ended up going to Texas. And just when you saw him, I mean, running the ball, being a receiver out of the backfield, I mean, even blocking, picking up blitz schemes, which if he is going to be a 3-down back, which means, he'll get paid a little more cash, especially in that second contract. But Bijan, I mean, the Falcons, look, you get Kyle Pitts, and then you get, or 2 seasons ago, you get Kyle Pitts, and then now you have Bijan Robinson. You're getting playmakers around there. So Desmond Ridder, I mean, I know quarterback-wise, they drafted him, and he's young out of Cincinnati. I like what he did last year. I think sitting last year was good for him. So we'll see. But yeah, they got Bijan Robinson at 8. Jalen Carter went to the Eagles at 9. Again, defensive tackle. So, outside linebacker, defensive end, defensive tackle. And the Bears took Darnell Wright out of Tennessee. The offensive tackle, which surprised me a little bit. I thought they'd go with the kid right there in their backyard. And I mean, not that Darnell Wright didn't have a good season, and I didn't watch as much Tennessee. Well, before Hendon Hooker went down, yes, I did. After Hendon Hooker went down, I didn't. And Darnell Wright, again, solid player. But then you get the Titans that go with Peter Skoronski out of Northwestern, who played pretty much up and down the line, and absolute brute. And I mean, they have him listed at tackle. So, man, we'll see. And then, the Lions, they decided to go with another running back, Jahmyr Gibbs out of Alabama, who's a total home run hitter. I'll give him that. I can't stand Alabama, but he's a home run hitter. So 2 running backs taken in the top 12. But, don't draft a running back. I mean, look, I love draft experts and people saying, you can get this, you can get that. If you wait for that player, guess what? They're going to be gone. And if you have that person identified as, number 1 on your board of when you draft of who's left, then, man, you go with that. And so Jahmyr Gibbs, home run hitter, the Lions take him at 12. The Packers in the trade with the Jets, they moved up 2 spots from 15 to 13. They took Lucas Van Ness, a defensive end, again, another defensive end out of Iowa. Broderick Jones, a tackle out of Georgia, slipped down to the Steelers, which, again, you see the other offensive tackles. And again, I slotted right there. Maybe he would have been a little earlier, but nonetheless, still 14th pick. And then the Jets at 15 take Will McDonald, the 4th outside linebacker, who had a hell of a season. Career, but a hell of a season last year at Iowa State. And then, like I said, the Commanders took Emmanuel Forbes out of Mississippi State, corner. So, yeah, a ton of defense. The Lions, again, took Jack Campbell. And then our next the Seahawks, by the way, for Cardinals fans, they got Jackson Smith and Jigba, who from Ohio State, the receiver, who, a lot feel the top receiver in the draft, and he was ranked the number 1 receiver. And then right after that, it was a wide receiver run because they did that, the Seahawks. And then the Chargers, maybe they wanted Smith and Jigba, but I was surprised about this one because, again, they could have went a little bit closer to their backyard as well. But they took Quentin Johnson out of TCU, in which, solid player. They had him ranked for 6'3" and 208 pounds. And if you're a Chargers receiver, you're going to be 6'3" and up. Look at Keenan Allen, look at Mike Williams. They are matchup nightmares for secondaries. And yeah, you're going to get some taller corners, but believe me, not every corner is matching up with them. And so they go with Quentin Johnson, who, again, big-time home run hitter out of TCU. And then Boston, or the Ravens, which, again, kind of in their neck of the woods, they go with Zay Flowers out of Boston College. And 5'9", 182 pounds. But this guy is so fast. The height, you see it, you're like, oh, well, you're not throwing them jump balls. Well, the old adage, you can't cover what you can't catch. And Zay Flowers, again, speed-wise, I know being up at Boston College, again, saw him a few times, and this season saw a few games, and I was like, huh. And then even watching highlights, I was like, dang. But little surprised the Ravens didn't go with who the Vikings went with in USC's Jordan Addison. And the Vikings went with Jordan Addison. He was the next Pac-12 player taken. And I mean, Addison at 5'11", 173 pounds. We saw what he did, obviously, with Caleb Williams this year, the Lincoln Riley offense. But, man, just I mean, he ran a 4.49 40-yard dash at the combine. But game speed, that's what impresses me from this kid. You know, people say, oh, well, you know, you're just trying to say, or anybody that's trying to, you know, be a homer for a player is going to say, oh, well, look at their game speed. Jerry Rice ran a terrible 40. How many people caught Jerry Rice from behind? I mean, that quick slant pattern. And again, if a corner's off, then it's different. But a corner sit there. If he's up on you, you have to separate from him off the line. Again, little hand fighting, going to go there. Jerry Rice didn't run the fastest 40, but Jerry Rice on the game field, yeah, he ran distances for lots of touchdowns, kids. So for those of you kids that don't know, go ahead. Go look up Jerry Rice. Go watch some highlights, because that quick slant, there are guys that do it very, very good, but man, he perfected it first. It was silky smooth. So, but Jordan Addison, again, speed-wise, again, you give him a deep ball, he's going to track it. The over-the-shoulder passes is the one thing. I mean, this year, again, at SC, with how they were slinging the ball around, again, him and Caleb Williams got on the same page. You know, 5'11", though, 173, so a little bit bigger than Flowers, obviously a little smaller than Johnson and Jackson Smith and Jigba. But, I mean, a run of 4 wide receivers in a row there. So, but Jordan Addison, I mean, he doesn't, and again, that's the thing, you know, I know they talked in the pre-draft analysis, and these guys watch way more film than I do. But like I said, watching, I mean, pretty much mostly all of USC's games this season, you know, when they, and I appreciated that when they said, you know, he has, I mean, they say he's small. I mean, I'm 5'11", I'm not going to say, yeah, obviously he's not 6'5", but still 5'11", I'm not going to say small. But he has a tendency to trap passes, but he doesn't drop many, and that's true. Mr. Addison does not drop many passes, and if you throw him open, you know, he will catch it, plucking the ball out of the air too, and contested catches though. And I'm so glad they said that, because when I was reading a lot of the pre-draft analysis, I was like, why is nobody? And then get to the end, but contested catches. So going up, even if the coverage is there, corners, he'll go up and he is getting the ball, like I said, tracking the ball. And what Jordan Addison did, I mean, this year at USC, you know, and the Vikings have to try and fill in for Adam Thielen. I mean, he was released, but I mean, 70 receptions and 6 touchdowns last year for Thielen. So you have to get a receiver in there that, and now you add Addison to Justin Jefferson. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, KJ Osborne, who definitely came on the second half of the season. And now it's, you know, on my guy, Eric Wilson's favorite quarterback, Kirk Cousins, to get them the ball and see what happens there. But Jordan Addison, I mean, look, a phenomenal receiver, and again, had a big year at SC. You know, he can play outside, but he'll be dangerous in the slot too. I mean, you have Justin Jefferson, and you can moving guys around, creating those mismatches. You saw Justin Jefferson go in motion, I mean, a lot for the Vikings. So Jordan Addison, whether he's in motion, but not always going to be stationary. But yeah, I mean, he'll definitely be a matchup nightmare in the slot if that's where the Vikings, you know, mainly put Jordan Addison. So it'll be interesting to see. And speaking of interesting, yes, the best tight end in the draft, in my humble opinion, no, not because he's in the Pac-12, but because of what he did. And you saw him on the field just destroying secondaries. Not the fastest, but sure as heck not slow. Dalton Kincaid out of Utah. Love this kid. 6'4", about 250 pounds, ranked the number one tight end coming in. And you got to love Kincaid. It's and what he did all season. Even that first game in Utah against USC where they won 43-42, that young man, whew, had a game. He definitely beat up the SC secondary, which did not happen much the second half of it, well, all season long, but more importantly, the second half of the season once they were in conference play. And Kincaid runs solid routes. It's all said about him in pre-draft. Big hands, plucks the ball out of the air. The one thing they talk about is making the first defender miss. He got up to speed quickly, and making the first defender miss, though, as a receiver, people are going to say, well, when they put that in analysis, that's obvious. You're going to be ranked high, but easier said than done. I'm not saying everybody's saying it's easy, but for Dalton Kincaid, making that first defender miss and breaking tackles, especially, like I said, 6'4", 250. He might put on another, and you don't want to get like too big to where you're going to slow down, but and the big thing too is he can threaten you vertically, but the 50-50 balls, and people say, well, 6'4", but yeah, you're going up against guys, but if it's a 50-50 ball, man, Kincaid can go up and get it. I saw him do it not just this past season, but even last season as well at Utah. Him getting on the same page with Cam Rising, and Rising finding Mr. Kincaid a lot all over the field. And he can line up in different spots too. You can put him down. You can obviously split him out. You put him in the slot. Even if you put him outside, it's still a matchup nightmare. And he goes to Buffalo. I'm sorry, I probably should have mentioned that. They traded up with the Giants to get ahead of the Cowboys, which is interesting to me how all those teams obviously are tied in NFL history and Super Bowl lore. Obviously, Giants Cowboys division, but the Bills and the Giants and the Bills and the Cowboys. And with what the Cowboys drafted, not upset about it because they definitely needed to do what they did. But I think they were going to draft Dalton Kincaid. I really do. And I think the Bills just got kind of, wind of it, and they jumped up. They made the trade and they got Dalton Kincaid. So, and going to Buffalo, by the way, Dawson Knox is already there as a number one tight end. So, Kincaid, you look at him being drafted by the Bills, and now he can be the complimentary option for Josh Allen, who already has, just think of this, Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis, along with Dawson Knox. And now you add in Kincaid. And yeah, this can actually help their running game get a little stronger, because that's the one thing they needed to do is have a little bit stronger of a running game, and not just it being Josh Allen. But and Dalton Kincaid, by the way, led the FBS in catches last season with 70. And again, it gives him versatility, which is crazy. And how does he do against zone coverage? And when you're that big, again, you get into a spot in the zone and you make plays. Yeah, it's going to be contested, but it's, man, with him and Knox on the field, along with, like you said, Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis, and I mean, even mixing like Singletary and Moss in running wise, that definitely should help them even more. So hats off to the Bills. Again, they pull off the trade. And they get ahead of the Cowboys and they take him. And then the Cowboys took Maisie Smith out of Michigan. A 6'3", 323-pound defensive tackle. So, yeah, but man, selfishly, I was hoping Kincaid would end up in Dallas because they were staying put. They weren't going up. Well, selfishly, I wanted to trade up to get Bijan Robinson, but that means they would have had to trade up all the way to number 7 with the Raiders, and that would have cost a pretty penny. So, not that it wouldn't have been worth it, because I mean, Ezekiel Elliott's gone and you have Tony Pollard, but man, you get Bijan Robinson. Yeah, would have been a big fan. Would have been a big fan of that. But look, that's the first round. Again, 3 Pac-12 players. Again, not a ton. Both the Big Ten and the SEC, like I said, had 9. But every single pick in the first round, kids, was from a Power 5 school. And that they said that because that doesn't always happen. That hasn't always happened. But this year it absolutely did. So, but yeah, I mean, hats off again to Christian Gonzalez, Jordan Addison, and Dalton Kincaid. Again, players obviously very worthy of where they got drafted. And yeah, I know as a conference, you say, oh, the Pac-12, this and that. Yeah, well, they'll produce in the NFL. And again, second and third round guys. Yes, I know it's not, the new shiny first round, but yeah, I'm sure there'll be quite a few more in the second and third round, especially running back wise, between Zach Charbonnet out of UCLA. Again, I touted this kid all year long during football season, all year long. And X-Valaday, I mean, out of ASU, what he did on his pro day, showing that it was insane he didn't get an invite to the combine, which he should have had an invite to the combine. Yeah, just absolutely insane. So, I mean, day 2 guys there running back wise between Charbonnet and X-Valaday, I could definitely see it second or third round. So it's one of those things where, but the Pac-12, I mean, they'll have quite a few more, and we'll see where Will Levis goes. I mean, the quarterback they thought would go in the first round, Hendon Hooker, didn't go in the first round either. I mean, coming off injury, so teams feeling they can get a bargain on him as they again, I thought the Chiefs might trade out of the first round, and they didn't. And they took with the last pick as being Super Bowl champs, they took Felix Anudike Uzoma, defensive end out of Kansas State, which they were looking to fill a need there. And again, it was just kind of like playing with house money, coming off a Super Bowl and again, with Mahomes and that offense, like you need to get pass rushers on defense, and they lost Frank Clark, so they did that. But anyway, hats off again, USC, Oregon, and Utah with first round picks. But we'll step aside real quick here on Pac-12 Preview. When we jump back into it, I will get into softball and baseball. Huge matchups coming up this weekend as we roll on here on a Pac-12 Preview. All right, we are back here on Pac-12 Preview. Yes, I am Michael Carrasino at Diablo00 on Twitter. Hit me up, or again, just watch. Hit me up in the comments here. I should say, you got any comments, questions, anything like that? Any little banter, trash talk, and again, keep it fun. But we can definitely trash talk, go back and forth. Oh, by the way, great thing, being a Sun Devil, but being a New Jersey Devils fan. Oh, Rangers fans, you got shut out 4-0. So just wanted to get that out there. Ha ha. You took the first two, lost the last three. Rangers, you're going home. But hey, you know what? There's still a game to close out. Not going to count chickens before they hatch. I just wanted to say that it's a beautiful thing when the Rangers get shut out. That being said, speaking of beautiful things, let's talk a little Pac-12 softball. We have some big matchups this weekend. And yeah, Oregon, again, looking to keep pace up top again with UCLA, who's just, again, running away with it. But Oregon is traveling to the Bay Area to take on Cal this weekend. Their game today is at 6 o'clock Eastern time, 3 o'clock Pacific. And then the big one between UCLA, they travel to Utah, which, again, Utah right there, they're number 23 in the country after the last rankings. UCLA number 2, by the way. But yeah, we have Utah and UCLA, and that's at 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific on the Pac-12 networks. And then Oregon State, the Beavers, travel to Tucson to take on Arizona, 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific. And again, the Wildcats looking to get back on track. And a huge one in Tempe, especially for, ASU, again, because if they want to have a chance to get into a regional, they definitely had a, it would do them wonders to take 2 out of 3 or take all 3 from the Stanford Cardinal, who, yes, are now number 9 in the country. So, yeah, it's a Oregon's 14, by the way. So UCLA's 2, Stanford is 9, Oregon is 14, and Utah is 23. Oh, I'm sorry. So, yeah, UCLA's 2, Stanford's 9, Washington. I'm like, there's another team. Washington is at 10, Oregon's at 14, Utah's at 23. So, again, 5 teams from the conference in the top 25, and that is absolutely huge for the conference. But, yeah, you look at UCLA at number 2, they're right behind Oklahoma. But with UCLA playing Utah this weekend, so we'll get to the standings. But, yeah, that's in a second. It can be actually, huge for both. But if Utah were to pull off the sweep, that would be crazy because then they play. So Saturday's matchups, we will see. Oregon and Cal. In Oregon, that's 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific, and then Utah and UCLA same time, 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific. And this obviously, like I said, UCLA. I don't know if I said is going to Utah. They're going to Salt Lake City. So on the road, we'll see what they can do there. And then the ASU Stanford game in Tempe, that's at 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific. And the nightcap on Saturday, 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific, Oregon State down in Tucson taking on U of A. Like I said, then Sunday, UCLA and Utah, that is 2 o'clock Eastern, 11 o'clock Pacific on Sunday. And then Washington, the Huskies, they are going to be playing Utah Valley. And, yeah, that's just a Sunday game. So, but, yeah, that's at same time, 2 o'clock Eastern, 11 o'clock Pacific. And then the last 3 games, so Oregon State at Arizona, Oregon at Cal, and Stanford at Arizona State. 3 o'clock Eastern, 12 o'clock Pacific. All those games are that's when they will be played. So yeah, you can check the schedule. But yeah, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and like I said, that series in Salt Lake City. Because now when we look at the standings, all right. So here's the crazy thing. When we look at the standings now, this is why it is huge for Utah. UCLA again, 18-3 in conference play. They're up top of the conference. Washington, well, they're at 14-7, and they're number 2 in the conference. And then you have Utah 12-6, Oregon at 11-7, Stanford at 10-8, Cal at 7-10, ASU at 5-13, and then Oregon State at 3-14-1, and then Cal 7-10-1, and then Arizona at 3-15. But for Utah and UCLA, real quick, this is why I'm so excited for this series. So if you get a chance to check it out, you should. If UCLA sweeps it, Pac-12 regular season is over because no one's going to catch them. Because UCLA would be 21-3, right? And then Utah would fall to 12-9. But here's where it gets crazy conundrum if there's a sweep. If Utah sweeps UCLA, they would be 15-6. Well, UCLA would be 18-6. So then Utah, again, that headed into the, again, final, if they sweat, yeah, they'd be 18-6. And then yeah, they'd be 18-6, like I said. Sorry. And they have 3 with UCLA. And then next weekend, they close out. They close out with Oregon. So, I mean, you could get back-to-back sweeps, and that would be ginormously huge. So it would give them a chance to say, because like I said, they would be not 18, sorry, they'd be 15-6, and UCLA would be 18-6. So it's, but I mean, even if UCLA goes 1-2, or if they go 2-1, then yeah, so that should be an insanely sick series, which I suggest you checking out. So that's where we are with that. Baseball wise, schedule this weekend. Again, Arizona State still up top. They are in Eugene hosting Oregon this weekend. Cal's taking on Pitt. Again, odd number of teams. Cal's actually traveling to Pitt to take on the Panthers. So, but yeah, odd number of teams. Somebody's always playing once conference play starts. There's one team, like I've said, throughout the season playing that. So, or playing an out-of-conference team. But yeah, conference-wise, Washington State will head to Salt Lake City to take on Utah. And like I said, Arizona State is headed to Oregon to take on the Ducks, or to Eugene to take on the Ducks. USC is headed to Seattle to take on Washington. And Arizona, opposite of softball, they're going up to Corvallis to take on Oregon State. And then UCLA and Stanford this weekend up in Palo Alto. Big matchups there. So those are the weekend series in baseball. The Saturday game for ASU and Oregon, that's 6:05 Eastern, 3:05 Pacific. Stanford and UCLA, that's 5:05 Eastern, 2:05 Pacific. Baseball-wise, if you want to check that out, because again, Stanford and ASU, as we look to the baseball standings, ASU again 13-4 up top, Stanford 13-5 overall, right behind them. And I mean, these conference games just absolutely huge for, well, always huge, but you're coming down the stretch, you're in the lead, it's even bigger. So yeah, and so midweek, ASU played Cal State Fullerton, and they actually played a 2-game series. ASU won the first one 9-1, and then in 11 innings, they took, that was on Wednesday, right? Yeah, on Wednesday. On Tuesday, they beat Fullerton 9-1. On Wednesday, it went 11 innings and they lost 11-8. But again, non-conference games taking on a really, obviously, a Fullerton team that throughout the years, I mean, program-wise, they've built up quite a tradition as well. So they split with them. And then, like I said, they head to Oregon. And then here's the madness. Then Stanford comes to town next weekend for the Sun Devils, which, again, absolutely huge series. And with, like I said, with Stanford taking on taking on UCLA this week, again, the Bruins still kind of hanging around. And if you're a Sun Devil fan, you're rooting for the Bruins to at least take two, not all three, but at least take two, and have the Devils take at least two from Oregon and win the series. So, but yeah, so ASU's 13-4 overall in conference play, Stanford 13-5. Oregon is 11-7, as is USC. UCLA is 9-7-1. Oregon State is 11-10. Washington at 8-9. Arizona at 9-12. Washington State at 7-10. Cal at 6-15, and then Utah at 4-16-1. In conference play. But like I said, the Sun Devils 28-13 overall, Stanford 26-12. Oregon is also 28-12 overall. USC 25-14, UCLA 23-13-1. USC is 25-14-1, UCLA 23-13-1. Oregon State, though, at 27-13. Again, if they can get hot, they actually did beat GCU. Again, they were in Tempe taking on the Devils, and then they played Grand Canyon on that Monday. They beat them 13-2. So, yeah, I mean, but you look at the rankings in the Pac-12 too. So Arizona State, even though they're up top, and yeah, I mean, they did have a corker, the 20-0 midweek beatdown from U of A a few weeks ago, who, yes, is 9-12 in conference play, but 23-15 overall. But yeah, they're at 18, which to me is a joke. I'm sorry. They should be higher. And I see some teams that are there. I see the records. I'm not looking at matchups. I just smile and laugh. But you know what? Just keep winning and then smoke them when you see him in the postseason. If those teams get that far, but that, I'll gloat on that later. But yeah, so Stanford's 8, Arizona State's 18, and Oregon is ranked 23rd. So 3 of the teams from the Pac-12. But I mean, huge baseball weekend, kids. As again in the Pac-12, look, it is going to be crazy stretch to the finish. I mean, like I said, Stanford and UCLA this weekend, but then Stanford coming to Tempe the next weekend. And neither squad is going to be looking ahead of that, because they could both, lose 3, and then UCLA is right there up top saying, thanks, guys. Thanks for looking ahead. But yeah, it'll be very, very interesting and fun down the stretch, just because, like I said, depending what ASU does against Oregon, what Utah does against UCLA, what Stanford, I guess I said, I was looking at Utah, what Stanford does against UCLA. But Billy Bloomquist, the way he has the Sun Devils going, I mean, the way they've been playing, it's just, yeah, I mean, it's a season. You're going to have some games that are, corkers. No, you don't think it'll be a 20-0 blowout. But on the other side of that, they have played consistently. I mean, the players are coming along. The pitching staff has been solid. The hitting, situationally has been good when it's needed to be, but just overall, the bats rocking it. So I look forward to that, and it's it'll be a fun series against Oregon. Can't wait to watch that and check it out, and then come back Monday and talk about it. And again, Stanford and UCLA. Whoo, that's going to be a fun one too. So checking both of those out, going back and forth. Obviously, checking out some softball. I mean, UCLA and Utah. Now I can say Utah. UCLA and Utah. Like I said, implications for the top of the Pac-12. So Heck of a weekend. Again, enjoy your weekend. Enjoy, again, college sports, baseball, softball. Oh, quick on women's tennis real quick before we wrap up. Like I said, they had the play-ins last week. So Utah and Arizona were 8-9 this past Wednesday, and it's still going on today. But Wednesday it started, and Utah was the 8 seed. Arizona was a 9 seed. They beat Utah, did Arizona 4-1. So they advanced to play Stanford. Then the 6-11 matchup, USC was 6, Washington State was 11. USC beat Washington State 4-1, and they advanced to play number 3 Arizona State on the women's side. And then Oregon and Colorado. Oregon was 7, Colorado was 10. Colorado won that, actually, a little bit of an upset, 4-2, and they advanced to play number 2 Cal. So you had number 1 Stanford taking on number 9 Arizona. Stanford won 4-1. Then number 4 Washington taking on number 5 UCLA. That was already set, no playing there. But Washington swept UCLA 4-0 on the top part of the bracket. So now Washington will be taking on Stanford today at 3 o'clock Eastern, noon Pacific. And then number 3 Arizona State taking on number 6 USC. USC, I mean, with the mini upset there, they beat Arizona State 4-1. And then number 2 Cal taking on number 10 Colorado, like I said, and Cal won that 4-0. So the semifinals in the Pac-12 championship, number 1 Stanford, like I said, taking on number 4 Washington, and number 6 USC taking on number 2 Cal. And on the men's side, real quick, as that also got started Wednesday, number 8 Arizona State took on number 9 Oregon in the play-in, and that was the only play-in to get the bracket set. And Oregon won that. They inched by 4-3 to take on, and then that was set. So the matchups went like this on Thursday. Number 1 USC taking on number 9 Oregon. Number 2 Arizona taking on number 7 Washington. And then number 4 Stanford taking on number 5 Cal. Utah was at 3. They were taking on number 6 UCLA. So USC, they beat Oregon 4-0 to advance to the semifinals. And then Stanford taking on Cal. Stanford beat their rivals Cal 4-2 to advance to the semifinals. And then number 2 Arizona swept number 7 Washington 4-0. And then Utah taking on number 3 Utah taking on 6 UCLA. They swept, or no, they didn't sweep, pardon me. Utah beat UCLA handily, though, 4-1. So the semifinals look like this today, which get underway at 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific. Number 1 USC taking on number 4 Stanford, and number 2 Arizona taking on number 3 Utah on the women's side. And then whoever wins those will play in the championship game tomorrow. So I will have the results from that on Monday, and that's on the men's side. On the women's side too, same thing. Which they're playing in Libby Park in OJ, California. So yeah, that's where the men and women are playing. But yeah, so on the men's side, like I said, number 1 SC, number 4 Stanford, number 2 Arizona, number 3 Utah in the semifinals. And then real quick on the women's, number 1 Stanford, number 4 Washington, number 2 Cal, number 6 USC. So I'll have all that on Monday. We'll have the breakdown there and who won. So again, check it all out. You have a lot to check out this weekend. I know there's NBA playoffs. I know there's obviously NHL playoffs. And if you haven't watched any Stanley Cup playoffs, my suggestion is the first game you should watch tomorrow would be the Devils and the Rangers in prime time in Madison Square Garden. So we'll see. Devils dropped the first 2, won the last 3. So they're looking good. But anywho, going to get out of here. Have a great, safe weekend. Again, check out a lot of sports. Enjoy it. Check out some Pac-12. Again, I gave you baseball and softball you can check out. Enjoy the NFL draft too, because I know you're going to enjoy it. So I am out of here. I will see you Monday, same bat time, same bat channel. Like I said, enjoy your weekend. Be safe. And as always, kids, forks up.